Welcome back to this week's episode of Hormones, Metabolism and You. I'm your host, Dr. Cassie Smith. I'm a functional endocrinologist based out of Oklahoma City. Thank you so much for taking the time this week to learn something new, to learn something about your health that will hopefully benefit you and a lot of people that you love if you share it. I am using another of my hormone summits that came out in early April. I'm repurposing it here for you guys because I thought this was a fascinating interview, pointing out how clean air, clean water, and toxins can really destroy our health. My hormone summit in April was really focused on mental health symptoms, anxiety, depression, things like that women typically get during menopause. I had some really important guests that came on and said, you know what? A lot of times menopause gets blamed for things, but it could be other things. Well, I had Dr. Jaban Moore, and when he came on, we talked about toxins. And so our whole discussion was about how hidden environmental toxins like mold, heavy metals, and radioactive water can mimic perimenopausal symptoms and disrupt mental health. I've had a lot of people on recently where we've talked about toxins. I have more people coming about clean air, but I really thought that this was amazing because he teaches us why anxiety, depression, and brain fog might not be just aging or hormones, but it could actually be poor air quality and water quality as the real culprits. And this is actually a pretty significant issue, even in the United States. We talked about simple science-backed ways to detox your body, purify your home, including your water, and restore hormonal balance for lasting wellness. So Dr. Jaban Moore is a doctor of chiropractics located in Kansas City, who works virtually with clients through functional medicine to assist them in overcoming chronic health conditions. At age 25, he went from being an award-winning college athlete to not being able to get out of bed. And interestingly enough, he did college sports with somebody I went to high school with. So I think that's pretty cool. He sought out countless doctors looking for answers, but doctors only gave him Band-Aid solutions. He was later diagnosed with Lyme disease. Once he overcame this complex infection, he dedicated his practice to helping clients discover the cause of their symptoms. Dr. Moore specializes in Lyme disease, PANS, PANDAS, autism, parasitic infections, and environmental toxicities. He has a team and he works out of the Redefining Wellness Center in Kansas City. So this is going to be similar to the episode that I did with Dr. Hinchy to a certain degree when it comes to Lyme, but we go way deeper in toxins. We go deep with water. We go deep with air. And I found this fascinating. So I hope that you enjoy this episode. Thank you for coming on to this summit and talking with me about just some symptoms in general that women can experience, especially mental type symptoms, anxiety, depression, things like that as they go through menopause.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. This is a extremely important topic, as so many women are just told, oh, you're getting older, your hormones are changing. We're just going to either put you on hormones or just deal with it. And what we see so often is if you can get their body to feel safe in their environment and be in a safe environment, it works really, really well. In most cases, you'll see hormone levels go back to normal when you get them in those situations. You'll see their mental health symptoms fade away, all by simply just curating the environment they're in and getting their body to feel safe.
That is a really cool way of putting it. Dr. Jen Simmons wrote a book recently about breast cancer. I don't know if you know her, but she wrote a book about breast cancer, and she kind of talks about that in the beginning of the book, how our body, when our body is not a safe environment, that's when bad things happen, like cancer. And so to hear you say that, when our body's still safe in their environments, then they'll work better. So that's a cool way of putting that. I like that.
Yeah, when you come into my clinic and you talk to us and we go through our note, the first section is, do you live in a place that is safe? Is your air breathable? Does it have mold toxicity in it? Do you have radon or uranium or radium in either the basement or your water supply? Which 170 million Americans right now are drinking radioactive water. If you live in Miami, if you live in most of California, these are two cities. Water is radioactive. I was also just on a call today with a client in, Virginia, near Washington, D.C., and her daughter had been sick, had been through all these mold protocols, Lyme protocols, hormone protocols. We simply got clean water by getting them to use a distiller, and it removed their radium from the water supply, which you can see through EWG, which they take the report from the EPA, right? So it's on the EPA. We found that there was toxin there. We saw it in the hair. We removed it. Stomach pain was gone. Nervous system calm. Her mental health symptoms, a 17-year-old girl, right? So her anxiety and her stomach pain were gone by switching water. And here's the kicker. She was already drinking reverse osmosis water, but RO doesn't remove radium very well. So for her, we had to make that switch.
Wow. And so you did this from her hair?
Yeah, so for finding uranium or radium, or even radon for that matter, as far as in the body, you can do urine tests. They're okay. But a lot of times a hair test, which is just taking a sample of hair, is going to give you a little bit more information. It's going to give you a 90-day window into specifically like the minerals and the metal toxins in the body. So I prefer to do that. I actually take testing from urine, hair, and blood as our start point with working with clients because I think each tissue type gives you different information and different intervals of time of what's going on. I mean, you're a medical doctor, you know that blood, especially like say a CBC or a CMP, if you check the electrolyte levels of sodium, potassium, that can change hour to hour from blood. Whereas in the hair, it's more of that longer term look. So if I see a low sodium, potassium in hair, I know that that body's been under a significant amount of stress for a long period of time. I'm going to assume in most cases, just symptomatically speaking for these women, they're probably depleted. They're stressed. They're overwhelmed. They're burnt out. And their hormones, oftentimes, when you see a low sodium potassium on that hair test, their progesterone and estrogen oftentimes are going to be lower. So you're going to see lower hormone levels when you do that salivary or urine hormone test because their bodies are so depleted of normal minerals and stressed for so long.
That's very interesting. Okay. So besides, so again, this, we're kind of talking about mental health symptoms, depression, anxiety, things like that. I'm sure there are environmental toxins that make that worse. I know there are. I guess tell us some of the environmental toxins that you see besides, this radium was causing abdominal pain, but what are some toxins that you see that are pretty common, especially in women, maybe even around that menopausal age, that can cause you to have symptoms that could be blamed on menopause, right? Like anxiety, depression, ADHD, brain fog, things like that. What are some environmental toxins that come to mind?
Well, I mean, one of the biggest toxins that I run into is mold toxicity. Now, that can affect you no matter what age you are, but when you're going through a change of life, right? So hormones are supposed to be shifting. Your liver has to deal with all those hormones. Now, let's say you're living in a house and you've been there for a few years. Maybe there's a little bit of mold toxicity. It didn't knock you down all the way, but then you start going through that change of life and it's already weighing on you. Now that extra weight on your liver doesn't let menopause happen as smoothly as what we'd like it to. So then we end up seeing a significant change. So we have hormones plus mold. Now we have women ending up with estrogen dominance. We see inflammatory markers going up. I'll often see significant anxiety, irritability with these women. And instead of saying, oh, you're estrogen dominant, I need to give you a DIM product or a calcium deglucarate, which does work. It's great to put in there. If you simply remove the mold toxicity from their home, that's a good way to go there. And we can go more into mold. Some other things that we're running into is I was once talking to a naturopath and it was really interesting. He put me onto the fact that the lead generation, and this is all of the women that grew up in the early 1900s, which is a lot of our grandmas, some of our moms, and they had lead paint, they had lead pipes in their homes. This lead is a positive ion. So what you'll see is it in cases where there wasn't enough calcium, or maybe they were taking a ton of vitamin D, it can actually get into the bones. And when you get lead into your bones, it'll drive in, replacing calcium, and it can sit for years. Well, when you get pregnant and you start making babies, that lead can get into your baby. So I've actually seen third generation down away from the lead generation, where when we start detoxing, we see this lead come out in young women. But why this is important around menopause is we see a lot of mineralization of bone changing as we go through menopause. So as your hormones start shifting, that bone matrix starts shifting, and we'll see lead come out. So I've actually ran some testing, some urine testing, some hair testing on women going through menopause, see a lot of lead, and lead can create so much depression and anxiety on the body that they're like, where is this coming from? I eat organic. My house is not full of lead anymore, right? Like we've cleaned a lot of that up in our current building structures. They they go through their whole lifestyle and they're like, there's no lead. Where is it coming from? Well, it could have been in your bones for years.
That's interesting. So do you do urine and hair to get the lead? Like, do you urine, saliva, hair, blood? What do you do for lead testing?
So I'll do urine and hair. Like I said, hair is that longer term, that 90-day. I call urine more like the last 3 to 7 day test. We're likely to miss a lot of that. Blood is going to be useless when it comes to these more minute amounts that are coming out when it's coming from bone and that sort of thing. And the reason why this naturopath jumped onto this topic was his wife actually was dealing with osteoporosis, and they lived an extremely healthy lifestyle, but it kept getting worse. So he was getting pretty frustrated with the situation himself because he's like, I help people all the time, and this is a problem we've been able to fix. Well, when he started doing some testing, he actually got a huge grant from an oil company to help all these people that were working for the oil company. It was like $15 million to figure out how to help their healthcare system. And what he learned was what I mentioned earlier about the lead coming out in the bones. So he found that with his wife, that there was lead coming out in minute amounts when she went through menopause, which generated an osteoporosis cascade. So once he started detoxing and binding that mold, the osteoporosis went away. And he'd already been doing all the normal stuff, right? Like exercising, vitamin D, cleaning up the body, healthy diet, bringing in healthy calciums and colostrums and healing the gut lining. And none of that was working until he found that there was lead coming from the bone. Once he was able to bind that up, bone started remineralizing.
Hmm. That's interesting. So lead, which yes, I mean you think about paint and things like that, but you don't think, well, that could be now. But then here's my question to you: environmental toxins, lead, like there's still lead in gasoline, yeah?
Mhm. Yeah.
So I mean, I would think about this all the time. Like there's lead in gasoline. We can't have it in our house. We can't have it in paint, but it's in gasoline. So like, can you get toxic levels of lead from that, or you would have to spill it everywhere, or what? I mean, what's the...
Well, if you just start looking at air quality, I mean, drive out into LA and just see the air quality out there. It's terrible, right? So what is that smog? It's environmental toxins. It's not all lead per se, but there is lead that gets into the water supply. There is lead that gets into all of the plants and the foods. You have a home garden, it's beautiful, it's a great thing to do, unless the ground is toxic, right? Well, we also have GMO foods now that are able to grow anywhere on anything, it seems like. So they're pulling in more metals from our environment than what normal plants would be able to grow on. So I do know people that have houses that are closer to the road. When I've tested their body, there's more toxins in there. There's perchlorates, there's phthalates, all kinds of stuff that's coming off of exhaust into the body. So we just start looking, and lead is one of those. We'll look at, where can lead come in, but there's also lead that's been found in baby food, lipsticks, makeups. So when you start going down the rabbit hole of what will they put lead into, that's where we have to really know what products we're putting on our body. I mean, I did look at one study, I believe it was 32 lipsticks, and this study now is 10 years old. Out of 32 lipsticks, 16 had elevated lead levels because lead turns things red, right? Well, lipstick might be any different shade of red. What are they using to make it that if they're a cheaper company that's not using organic materials?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. It's interesting. The other thing is, yeah, I mean, I've read that too, like you can have lead in all sorts of stuff and you don't even realize it. The other thing is, I did a podcast episode with Sean Wells, so one of the really good supplement formulators, in the United States. And he was telling me that like they buy things from Amazon, from supplement companies, and then they do third party testing. And a lot of these supplements that you buy that are cheaper, maybe from non-reputable companies, have lead levels and like that are high as well. So sometimes it can be things you're ingesting as well, right? Which I have no idea why you would put lead in a supplement, but apparently sometimes they do.
Well, I've done a lot of third party testing myself, and lead, they're not putting it in there, right? They're using low quality materials. So let's say you're getting it from China, and in these materials, they're not doing third party testing on what they're bringing in. So, for instance, charcoal. Charcoal is going to have heavy metals in it, all of them. It doesn't matter what company you get it from, all of them are going to have some lead in there, probably some cadmium, and a few other different things are going to be in there. Now, the FDA has standards that they're supposed to follow. Now, the only way that the FDA knows is if third parties testing it and then sending it in to give the FDA the information, because they don't test most of the products. So that standard is a certain level and it's supposed to be below it. Now, you're going to have natural covalently bonded lead in all binders, which is okay because it's covalently bonded. You need 2000 degrees to break that bond. It's the inorganic metal that you have in the soils and in the plants that isn't bound covalently to the plant or the herb that you're using that becomes problematic. And that's where that third party testing comes into play. And it's really, it comes down to when, let's say, X company orders a big shipment of 10,000 pounds of X herb, you need to test that to make sure it doesn't have a bunch of lead. These cheaper companies just aren't doing that. And then they're getting crappy ingredients and then sending it off to the manufacturer to be put in. Your better companies, your higher quality companies, they third party test their own stuff and make sure that when they order from a certain company, it's a quality product.
Okay. That that makes sense. So, because I always wondered, like, well, why would you put lead in something? But it's just they don't realize necessarily that the lead is being put in there. So, you told me about radium and uranium in water, and you said it's more likely to be in like Florida, LA, some different places like that. Is there a way that you can get that tested easily? Like you get your water tested, you don't necessarily have to test the person as far as the water source, because there's lots of things that can be in your water, right?
Oh, for sure. And let's take it even simpler. Go to ewg.org, look up the water database, put in your zip code, and you can look at your water supply, the information the EPA publicizes for free, and you can just look at your water supply. So I do that with every single client that walks in my door. It's a simple, quick look. It takes us a few seconds, and then we go, okay, this is what's in your water. If there's uranium or radium, you should distill your water. If it's not that, pretty much all other people, I just tell them reverse osmosis is great. You can find a number of different companies. I use AquaTrue under the sink. As far as the filter, you just have a little spigot at the top and drink reverse osmosis water. What pushback I get on that topic is people will tell me reverse osmosis or distilled water is dead water, acidic water. It's got no minerals in it. And I'm like, sure, you're right on all three accounts, but I want it to be clean first. We don't want PUFAs, old medications, arsenic, radium, or any of this other crap in our water. We need to clean it first. So that's step one. Once you clean it, you can buy systems that will remineralize it. That way you get minerals back into it, the good ones, if you'd like to. Or some people I have will have like a water pitcher that does that and it structures the water. So depending upon the person, if they want alkalized or structured or mineralized, that's other steps after you get clean water. But I just tell people, I'm like, the first step is being clean.
Yeah. At our office, we just built an office in August, and my husband thought I was crazy, but we got this purified water system, and it cleans the water through reverse osmosis, but then it adds back all of these like nutrients, minerals, I guess you would say. Yeah. And funny because my staff, they're like, they call it the Colt water. They call me the Colt because I make them eat well. And anyways, but they call it the Colt water, but they'll all tell you the Colt water tastes different, but it's really good. I'm like, yeah, because it's clean and there's minerals in it. It's very different,
Yeah.
right? And at first they were kind of like, huh, but now they like take their big jugs in there and fill them up before they leave and go home. And on the weekends, like sometimes they'll come in on Monday morning and say, "Ugh, I had to drink like nasty Oklahoma water all weekend. I'm glad to have the cold water back." You can actually taste the difference, like I think. So that's interesting that you say that. I never thought about the mineralization thing until you just said that, because there's like 7 steps on that thing. And I was like, why do you need so many steps to clean water? But there's like a cleaning step and then there's like a remineralization step. So that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, we actually had our water tested in Oklahoma. We live in Oklahoma City. We had it tested. We had a company come out and test it. And I was appalled at the things that were in it. So we had a whole system put on in our garage that like cleans it before it even comes in. And then we have more systems inside. I don't even know. My husband dealt with all of it, but I was appalled at the things that were in my water. And not only that, but like chlorine and bromine and chloride, or no, chloride, it was chloride and there was like fluoride, all these things that are in your water, right? And so that's getting on your skin too, like when you're washing your body, right? And so you don't
Oh,
want these things like, that's what I was telling my husband. It's like, do we really need this system? I'm like, we do, because you don't want all these toxic things on your skin and then they seep into your body and then they cause issues, right? So that's interesting. I didn't know about the ewg.org though. That's so the main thing you're looking for there though is uranium and radium. Otherwise, it should be fine.
well, otherwise you just do reverse osmosis. If it's uranium or radium, then I'm doing a distiller. And to be frank, I just don't trust most testing companies to come to my house and test, because I've had so many miss that specific one, uranium or radium. And the reason why that is the way that you test it. Are you using a reactor that can actually separate that appropriately, or no? Most people are not. So when you have like small at home tests or do it yourself tests, they miss a lot of stuff. So for me, I just go to the EWG. It's free and it just tells you one way or the other. Go RO or go distiller based off of the information that I present to my clients. It doesn't tell you what to do on there.
And distiller or distilled water, like, is that a special system you put on too? Or is that something you have to like put in a pitcher and it does it? How do you do that?
So a distiller is a filter similar to RO, right? But RO, you put under your sink, you run active tap water through it, and then comes out clean water, and it just goes through that process. A distiller takes much, much, much longer. So it's 2 hours for 1 gallon of clean water, but it's incredibly clean because it evaporates water from one tank into another and then filters it. So it's a much longer process for those bigger problems like the uranium, because that element will make it through most filters like ionic or carbon or reverse osmosis, which is why I look it up, because I'd like to tell everybody RO works, but unfortunately, for so many, it just doesn't. And I'm pretty particular with making sure my clients get very clean water, because for me, I need to make sure you're living in an environment that is safe enough to get well so that we have that success. Now, if you can't afford it or you don't want to make those changes, at least we know what we're dealing with.
So if you do have to get distilled water, do a distiller, do they tell you on the ewg.org, like what are some, good distillers that you can use, or no?
I refer people directly over to mypurewater.com. And that's the one that I primarily use. I do know some people will even go to Amazon and buy distillers. The problem is you want it to be all stainless steel. You don't want to use like a plastic reservoir, because you have super hot water. It goes into plastic. So now you have the plastic problem that I'm trying to avoid by using a distiller. I just looked up Oklahoma City, where your practice is, and no radioactive elements, no arsenic. We have plenty of, as you mentioned earlier, bromate and chloroform, chromium. So I would be using a reverse osmosis system with clients there.
So all we need is reverse osmosis. Okay, we have that at our house. We have that at our clinic. So perfect. I'm good. Okay. So then tell me this while we're talking about water, and we can move to something else, but this just popped in my head. Obviously, we shouldn't be using plastic water bottles. I know that. Glass are probably better, but how do you feel about aluminum water bottles?
I got an aluminum one here.
So this one, my path, is this good?
Yeah, I mean, most likely you can get like the swabs where you can swab it to see if lead's coming out. But I'll
Okay.
say I'm primarily use a stainless steel for myself. Glass would be the best, but if you're me and you're in the gym and you're running around and you know you're going to drop it, shattered glass is not going to work. So,
I
yeah.
drop this thing like 3 times a day. It's a hot mess.
I mean, I give these out to every client.
How many times can you use these though before you should get rid of them, do you think? It says refillable, but
I've been using my same one for a few years. It's going to leach a little tiny bit, yes, but that's why we have to live a good lifestyle, right? Like I do a detox protocol once a quarter to pick up those little things that we're running into. I eat out at restaurants here and there. We know that's not organic. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to live my life. I just went to a Chiefs game. I'm a Kansas City boy, so sorry for anyone that doesn't like the Chiefs, born and raised here, thick and thin. Um, I want people to have fun. I want them to live their lives. I want them to be able to do things, live that 80-20, 90-10 rule. So if you're drinking out of a stainless steel bottle, it's probably good enough.
so my rule is like I change it once a month. I feel like that's pretty good, right? Like I don't know. So that's my rule. But okay. So I have my bottle, that's good. And then so that's water. We're good in Oklahoma City. Praise God. But before we move to another thing I want to talk about, which is air, because I have a question about that. On thinking about the hair thing, most women are out there thinking, okay, he wants me to send him my hair. Are you talking like one piece of hair? Or are you talking we got to cut our hair?
So for a hair test, we do need root, unfortunately. So I know that kind of is triggering for some women. But it's a little bit of hair from several different parts of your head. I promise you, you will not know. I don't have long hair. It used to be shorter. I actually did it live on my Instagram where they cut my hair on screen, and you could not tell after they did it that I was cut. And like I said, I don't have any extra hair to cover anything, right?
But it was like you have to cut it and it's like a big piece, or is it from different pieces?
Little different pieces, a little bit back here on the back, little on the side, little on the other side, maybe a little bit, back here.
Cutting it, we're not pulling it.
We're cutting it, yes.
Okay. Because I did it. I did a hair sample like a couple of years ago through Rupa Health. And it was traumatic because it said like you had to get so much hair to fill up this like thing, right? Mm-hmm. I swear to you, I had like this bald spot in the back of my head. I felt like it was like this big that they cut. I was stressing out, but it was all in one spot. So then I was like, I'm never doing that again. But then now you're saying you're talking like maybe I should do that again. But anyways, so you get like tiny little pieces from different parts of your hair.
Yeah, because you actually want different areas of your head so you can get a wider variety of like sources, just because, I mean, they all have different blood flow, right? So we want all those different sources. And for those who don't have any hair on their head, I know this is more women's target, but what do women do? They do something and they put their husband through it. If your husband's bald, we can use other areas that have hair.
Okay, good to know. My husband's bald. So, I was just thinking that too, because he probably has way more toxins than I do. He eats out a lot and does all the things I don't want him to do. So, okay. So good to know. So then if we're talking about making a safe environment for people, obviously water is important, but then air. And I think you mentioned this, right? You have to have clean water. Well, wait, go back. Sorry. You said you want your water to be clean and then you can mineralize it. How do you mineralize water?
I honestly just use trace minerals. So there's a lot of different companies out there. I've used Cellcores, I've used Concentrace, just to add back trace minerals. By the way, that's not macro minerals. You aren't going to get macro minerals in high doses in your tap water anyway, so you're not losing it. Just for those who, that's usually a question like, when you're removing everything, don't you need to add it all back? I'm like, well, water anyway, you're getting minimal from tap, so we don't need to go over the top. And second, we don't really absorb from water anyway well. Like our bodies don't absorb tiny rocks well. We absorb nutrients when they're bound to plants or animal tissues. So that's why we eat food. That's where you're getting most of your vitamin absorption.
So you said cell core or concentrates. Do you ever use things like a relay or any of those like electrolyte sticks or no?
I do, but not into just like every water that I'm drinking all day. I'll do a relight in the morning instead of a coffee because oftentimes coffees will deplete you of minerals. Like they actually make you pee. So if you're a coffee drinker, have an electrolyte afterward. If you're not, and you just want something in the morning that has some taste to it, honestly, electrolytes or a adrenal cocktail, which is a mixture of orange juice and some minerals is something a lot of the staff of my team have switched to because they get a higher high without the drop off from an adrenal cocktail, not a coffee.
What about decaf? Does that count? It's the caffeine that depletes the minerals, right?
Yeah, it is mostly because that caffeine will make you urinate. Coffee in itself isn't bad. If you have just like a cup, the problem is people that are doing multiple cups are putting a bunch of junk in it,
Yeah.
fake sugars and all of that.
So I love the taste of coffee, the smell of coffee, and I used to live on coffee, and you'll understand this, right? Like med school residency, I used to drink like 3 pots of coffee a day. I had an unfortunate incident a few years ago where I had a medical issue, and then I couldn't drink caffeine. Like it literally made me sick overnight, and I was like, what? And so now I drink decaf coffee though, because I still just love like the taste of it. So what you're saying is I can have my 32 ounces of decaf coffee throughout the day because it doesn't dehydrate me. That's what you're saying? Tell me.
Decaf isn't no caffeine, and 32 ounces means you're drinking probably like 1 to 2 cups of coffee regular a day, at least. Oh yeah.
Well,
What you may want to try is like the mushroom coffees, like the reishi coffees.
tried that and it makes me like anxious.
Mm,
I have like MTHFR, comp T, like all the weird stuff, but I take all my vitamins too, like my SAMe and I don't know. The mushroom coffee though, I've tried like 4 of them, but NAD makes me real like, I don't know.
mm.
I'm very like, I don't know, but I don't drink all that at once. Like I probably have 32 ounces of coffee from 7 a.m. to like 5 p.m. Just like kind of sip on it throughout the day. Now I have like 4 of these things. So like I drink like 120, 140 ounces of water a day too. And I drink
Yeah.
tea. So I drink like herbal tea.
Geez, we are absolutely depleting you of minerals. That is a gallon of water and 32 ounces of coffee in a day. I bet if we played around and cut your water in half, cut your coffee in half, made those liquids, maybe more of like the Relights or the Ultimas, your HRV and your resilience, like your recovery, say on a Aura Ring or a Whoop, would
Mhm.
actually go up.
You know, it's funny that you say that because my HRV has been going down recently and that drives me insane because I'm very like, and I can't figure out why. And the other thing I will tell you is I feel so thirsty all the time and I can't figure out why. And I definitely don't have diabetes and my fasting insulin is like 3 because I'm neurotic about that sort of stuff.
You are stressing your body out. One reason you're stressing your body out is you're actually stripping yourself of minerals by having too much liquid. So you are likely, and I don't know this without labs, of course, you are likely mineral depleted due to overconsumption of liquid.
And well, and let me throw this in there. You're going to love this. I also spend 20 minutes a day in a hot sauna at about 100 degrees Celsius with 50% humidity. And so I do that at least 5 days a week. And then I do hot yoga for at least an hour, 1 day a week. So does that make it worse or better?
Well, I mean, it all depends, right? Like you're exerting yourself, you're losing electrolytes. It's just about finding that rebalancing level. And with this being hormone in women, right? A lot of women that come into me that are in that menopausal time, like my body doesn't feel like it used to, my resilience isn't there, I'm gaining weight. All of these topics are coming into play, and it's different for each woman. But what does society say? Eat less, work out more, and then we crash. And now we have adrenal fatigue and our cortisol is out of range and our hormones are depleted. So we're over pushing into this depletion when we're already depleted, which is what's driving us there.
Interesting. Yeah, and I was drinking more electrolytes like Relight. I like the way Relight tastes. But then I'm really big into gut health. And then sometimes there's stuff in those that I'm like, oh, I don't love that, like stevia and stuff like that. So that's kind of why I stopped, to be honest with you. But that is interesting that you say that because I've been trying to figure out literally like 2 months ago, I stopped having so many electrolytes and my HRV went from like the 50s to like 37, 38, and I can't figure out why. And maybe that's it. Is it's just I was drinking like a Relight in the morning when I exercise, like 25 ounces of Relight, and then I was having like one at lunch and maybe one later in the day. And now I don't really have any. So that may be it.
3 Relight, if you gave that to me, I'll be lightheaded and want to pass out because it's so much mineral for me. But I'm a lot less liquid consumption. Not bad. I'm still 60, 70, 80 a day and water ounces. But in that, I'm putting a relight. And if you don't want as much stevia in there, relight does have a non-flavored. So you could do like half a flavor, half a non-flavor. It'll be a little saltier, but then it's less stevia going into the body.
I like salt though. Like
Yeah.
I told my husband I'm just gonna start putting salt in my water. I'm the weird person that would like drink salt watered lemon water. You know what I mean? Like I like
Mhm.
salt. I love salt. And maybe that's why like I crave it because I'm like I always love salt.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you want
Oh,
salt on everything with all that water you're drinking. You can the question for me would be like your potassium magnesium balance within your body. Are we
yeah.
balanced or not? If you can tolerate so much sodium, you could even switch over to an LMNT, which is like way more sodium and more salty flavored.
You know, and I take magnesium. I don't know, my electrolytes are pretty good, but that's interesting. And the other thing I correlated to, now you're making me think so many things, but my trainer was even saying to me the other day, like, I feel like in the last month you've just been not as strong. And I'm like, well, maybe I'm just tired. And he's like, oh, I don't know, but something's wrong. Like I've trained you forever and you're not as strong. But like I haven't lost muscle like I do in body. My muscle's the same. My weight's about the same, but he's telling me like you're not lifting like I would expect you to be lifting. And I'm like, really? So maybe it's just that I'm dehydrated. Um,
Well, hey, go back to med school, sodium potassium pump. If you're depleted of that, you're not going to make any cell work.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to start having my relight again and I'll let you know. So glad we talked about that. Back to the air. So if your water is good and we figured that out and you're getting enough minerals, then the next thing I think about that I think is really under like utilized and people don't think about is air quality. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, that's a huge thing. If you literally look on the screen for those who can see, I've got an air doctor right behind me. It's in this room. I've got like four other ones in my house. I have a high density, almost hospital grade purifier on my HVAC system because mold toxicity is a major problem that I run into all the time. 50 to 70% of buildings in the United States have water damage. That's straight from the EPA's website. That's their statement. Of that, most people have no idea. So, doing proper mold testing is not doing your typical real estate test. You do not just put simply a air capture device in the middle of a room. That's not good enough. We need dust samples. We need experts that are actually trained in building biologists to check for mold. I will run body testing first or an organic acid test or a urine mycotoxin test on you to figure out if we need to then go test your home. You could also have radium or radon in a basement, like I've talked about earlier. But radon in a basement, this is a gas that can come up through your basement. I see this in a lot more people than you would think because they don't test their homes for that. That's another problem. These are just two big ones. But there was a study done on air quality in homes. It's 2 to 3 times worse air quality in your home than outside of your home. So if you think you live in the city and it's toxic outside, inside's worse because we have the paint. So my house, when I built my house, I took and made sure it was non-VOC paint, which decreases the amount of toxin coming in, but it's still there. You're off-gassing of all of the plastics and the phthalates and the glues in your floors. It's pretty incredible how much can be coming off. So I'll have people actually bake their homes. So wait till the middle of the summer in Oklahoma, crank up the heat, get your house to 100, 120 degrees. It'll actually push a lot of VOCs out. It'll smell like your house is burning. And then you vacate all that by opening the windows up once you've got the heat in, and you just bake out some of those toxins to better your air quality. And then we can actually use things like air doctors to keep that going. And that air doctor, when I bring the new into the house or paint something or oh my gosh, it cranks up so high because it senses the toxins. And this is simply just the air you're breathing could be making you sick.
Yeah, I didn't know that 50 to 60% of buildings have water damage. So you do, I like organic acid testing. You can do that. That's your urine, right? You can do urine or
Mhm.
saliva.
Oh yeah.
Uh, Urine mycotoxin, that do you do that provoked, like with glutathione or like salt baths, or do you just do that with mold? How do you do your urine mycotoxin
I
test?
don't provoke, and it's not that provoking is wrong. What I'm trying to do is when I do my initial testing is figure out what your environment is currently, not what you've been in your entire life, right? Like we both went to college. Was your college dorm full of mold? Probably. Do
Like,
I need to provoke your body to see that that's there? Maybe, but honestly, I can look at a lot of the markers in your testing to see how stressed your body is. What I care about is your now. I need to make sure you're in a safe environment now. And the only way I'm going to see that is not provoking you, so that I can see what's coming in your mouth, your airway, what's being absorbed through your diet or your skin and coming out. So that's what I'm looking for initially. That way, then we can just go and make sure your environment is safe. Provoking is going to tell me, have you ever been around whatever toxin we're looking for, whether that's mold or etc. And that's good information to know to detox, but it doesn't tell me about now.
Yeah. Have you heard of Jasper, the Jasper air filters?
Yep, got one in the other room.
Okay, I was gonna say. So we just got ours. I ordered it a long time ago. We just got ours a couple weeks ago. And I put one in my bedroom and one in my kitchen. And we have pretty clean air in general. So I was like, good. My husband was cooking burgers with onions 2 nights ago. And I hear this like, wah, oh, I was like, what the heck? The one in the kitchen was red. It went from green to red. And then the one in my bedroom, which is like on the other side of the house, went from green to orange. And they were both on for like an hour after he cooked. And I was like, what in the world? Just like from cooking burgers?
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's do this. Look at the toxins that plants can put in there that your body has to deal with. Now we cook it and aerosolize it. So if you go talk to all the animal-based providers out there, right? They talk about root vegetables like onions, and I mean, shoot, even peppers like nightshades.
Yeah.
They have a lot of toxins in them that protect them from animals wanting to eat them. Well, now we're cooking it and aerosolizing it. Now you're detoxing it out. I mean, when I cook jalapenos, I love hot food.
Yeah.
I can't even breathe if I'm grilling those so that they can be like sauteed to put on my food. I have to have that the sucker fan above my oven, and I'm still kind of choking when I'm doing it because you're not supposed to be breathing that in and cooking it. There you go. Now you know.
Yeah, I was shocked. He was just making ground beef, like organic, grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef, onions and mushrooms. At my house, that thing was going nuts for an hour.
Oh
And I was
yeah.
like, holy cow. Um, okay. So you definitely, I guess, ideally you have one of these in every room, or how does that work?
So each one has a square footage. The one that you see in my screen right now, the square footage is cycle twice an hour for 1,200 square foot, cycle 4 times an hour for 600 square foot. I like to do the high cycle rate. So for my house, I have one per 600 square foot. Each one that you purchase, whether it's Jasper or Air Doctor or etc., is going to tell you what it can do.
Okay. They're expensive though. So some of them are anyways. So yeah, I mean, maybe I'll invest in a couple more at a later date. But I have one in my kitchen and I have one in my bedroom. So I felt good about that. See, awesome. But I was kind of shocked about that. And so if you're breathing in these toxic chemicals like mold, so like these are supposed to get rid of mold, correct?
Yeah, mold and honestly, just about anything. There are ones that have higher purification ratings than, say, the Air Doctor in the back of my room. Of course, that comes with more expense. So depending upon the purification rating is the ability that it's going to clear things. Mold can be super duper tiny. So like iAdapt 2 and Molecule and IQ Air make claims that they have smaller ability to pick up smaller particles.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to figure out what you're dealing with and what your budget is.
Yeah. So what are some symptoms that people would have if they had toxic air quality? Like if they had, let's say, mold, what are symptoms that people with mold have? Is it kind of like thyroid and it's like a everything, or there's
Yeah, Lyme disease, the great mimicker, it's literally everything. Mold can pick up a lot of things. So let's talk about Western medicine, what you were trained in for in school. If a person is dealing with mold, they get wheezing, coughing, breathing issues, a little bit of histamine increase, so allergies. Those are the common mold symptoms. Now let's move into reality. If you have enough mold, you're going to have a heightened immune system. So you're going to be stuck in that fight or flight. Your immune system may create rashing on the skin. You're likely to end up with recurrent infections. You can have brain fog and fatigue because mitochondria get suppressed by mycotoxins. So when I run that organic acid test, if there's more than two markers in the mitochondria, I start thinking mold is a high likelihood. Mold also produces something called oxalates, which is a toxin that it releases. And those oxalates can cause achiness, body pain, burning, numbness throughout the body. So these are all different pieces and signs of mold. So yeah, it can cause a ton of things. I hit on a few of the highlights. Think lungs and breathing, of course, is the common one. Sinus issues is the common one. And then beyond that, honestly, just suppression of your body. Did you know that they use mycotoxins like myclofenic acid? They use that to make medications for immune suppressant drugs. They also use it to make biowarfare weapons because it actually just shuts your body down.
Does it do anything from a brain perspective? Like, will it cause anxiety, depression, brain fog, mold?
Absolutely. Look up PubMed and mold toxicity. If you have mold, you probably are dealing with significant anxiety or depression if it's really bad because you're stuck in that fight or flight. Every breath you take is unsafe. So your body generates a I feel unsafe response, which is anxiety. So almost everybody I'm working with that has significant mold toxicity is going to have anxiety.
Can you have had mold exposure like 20 years ago and still be toxic? Like, how long will it stay in your system?
So there's two ways that mold is going to affect you. One, it's the toxin part. That's the mycotoxin. So that's the defense mechanism that mold releases and you can breathe in. So that can get in your body and you can store that for decades. I've had people who did a provoked test 2 decades after leaving their college dorm room or their moldy house, and you still see some coming out when their body's able to release that. But the second way is colonization. So just like you can imagine an infection like Lyme disease or SIBO or a UTI can get inside your body, grow and reproduce. Mold can do the same thing. So that can be in your body colonizing until you get rid of it. So that can be going on and on, producing more and more and more mycotoxins. So I have people that have come in. It's been years since they knowingly have been in mold toxicity. Not everybody knows they're in it, but years since they've been in it. And we still see mycotoxins coming out of urine. We still find signs through, say, an organic acid test of colonization.
Wow. So for years. And so basically, when you treat mold toxicity, you just treat it until those things stop coming out in their urine. Is that what you typically do?
So if you have mold toxicity, it's a complex problem because it's an immune suppressant. So if I give you an immune suppressant drug as a medical doctor, right? What do they tell you to tell your clients? Beware of chronic infections, whether that be getting bacterial infections, mycoplasma, candida yeast, right? Well, if you have this in your body for years suppressing your immune system, you can have every infection. Everything you ever ran into potentially could colonize to your body. So I have to be very aware of if you have mold toxicity, are we dealing with other parasites, bacteria, funguses that we need to deal with? So it's not just the mold we're dealing with, it's also the other infections. It can also be the toxins because the mold is suppressed your mitochondria, so you're not detoxing as well. So it gets pretty complex for those people that are dealing with a lot of it. But what we end up doing is we run the organic acid, we run a functional measurement blood panel, we do the hair test. That's just the basic start point. So we see the physiological function of the body. And then from there, we take it down the next step. So then we go and run specific toxin panels or infection panels to understand what else we're dealing with. And we start to optimize where we need to head. And we'll rerun those physiological tests, say 6 months out, to make sure things are going the right direction. Ideally, symptoms are coming down, right? So 6 months out, we see progress in symptoms. Maybe they're halfway gone for an average client. For those really chronically ill, it may take longer. For those who are super resilient, it may be less, right? So it just depends on the person. And we do want to see the mold markers coming down, but we use different herbs, whether it's caprylic acid or oregano, Iliaceum to help deal with some of the mold. Sometimes if it's bad enough, we have some of our medical providers prescribe itraconazole, nystatin, diflucan. We combine those things depending upon what's going on so that we can support the body. And then we also have to be binding up the toxins because your body will not be able to bind up all those toxins that are coming out all by themselves. And in most cases at a rate that we want to do it to get you well. So we have to bind that up and we'll see as we go from test to test to test, those mycotoxins reducing.
And so is your goal to get it to zero?
Ideally, I'd love to say yes. And we have seen that in plenty of cases where it gets down into the green and it's no longer testing. Sometimes what we end up doing is whether it's cost for the client or just symptom relief, their symptoms are gone, they're happy, and then we just help to give them a maintenance program as far as like just live a healthy life, make healthy decisions moving forward. And we don't always see it go to zero, but I love seeing those data points. So for somebody that's willing to run a test, we want to see it get into the green, which is not zero, by the way. It's just an acceptable range that you're no longer symptomatic and it's no longer harmful.
Okay. So you mentioned at one point charcoal and how charcoal had, did you say lead?
Yeah, so most all charcoal companies I've tested 10 all have some level of lead in the product.
So the reason I bring this up is because there are lots of people out there who swear by these charcoal enemas, right? What are your thoughts on these charcoal enemas if they have, or coffee enemas, like in general?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
let's start with water enema. What's a water enema for? It's to flush you out. You can do this in the hospital. Coffee enemas were brought in actually back, I believe it was in like World War One. They did a coffee enema because they ran out of water. And they're like, oh my gosh, this works. The Gerson technique was born from there, I believe is the right story. And coffee enemas can be extremely effective at detoxing the body, increasing glutathione in the liver. Um, for those who are willing to do it, I mean, it can be an amazing tool. I've seen it change the game for people on their ability to detox and clear the liver. When you start adding things to a coffee enema, you want to make sure that they're quality products, whether that's Tudka, which is a bile salt producer, whether that's minerals. I've seen all kinds of things going on. I've seen people experimenting with wheatgrass and lemongrass and all kinds of different things for anti-inflammatory or antioxidant purposes. Binders going rectally. We want to make sure the product's quality. We want to see that COA, which is the lab testing you're talking about, and make sure that everything is dialed in and it's a quality product. Never do anything from Amazon. Honestly, don't buy from Amazon, even if it's a reputable company, because if it's not bought from the reputable company's store, it's bought from a reseller, you don't know if that's the actual product. I've had people buy things. They're like, this is not the same product. I'm like, I know, that's why we don't buy from resellers on Amazon. Um, so be careful what you put up your bum, because when you put it in your rectum, you increase the absorption. I've heard somewhere between 10 or 5 to 10 fold, and you don't have your normal gut and liver process to filter the toxins. So just be very careful there, but doing things appropriately that are tried and true, like a coffee enema with not moldy coffee. So you got to buy an organic mold-free coffee. That can be a game changer, especially in hormones. I mean, do this with some of those women that are feeling like their liver's backed up. They just feel congested and inflamed and their hormones aren't moving well, but otherwise they're healthy. A coffee enema can change the game right there.
What about charcoal though? Because you said that they have lead. So that's where I got concerned. Like there's a lot of people who swear by these charcoal enemas, but if they have lead in them, that doesn't seem like a good idea.
Well, it's organic versus inorganic lead. That's the differentiation. So go back to your pharmacology classes, go back to covalent bonding, right? If it is a quality product that does not have elemental lead in it, that lead should not be able to escape that covalent bond without, incinerating the body, which we're not going to do. If it is elemental lead, so it's very high levels and it's not quality brands, then it could simply be that elemental lead that can get into the body. So that's where you have to differentiate, and you have to see that COA, which is the third party testing, which most companies are not going to provide unless they're very good companies. And that's where you can go look, like, is this in the FDA range? Because like I said, if you burn an herb, you're going to find metals in it. Plants have metals. Your human body has metals, but is it bonded appropriately or not?
Okay. So I have one more question for you. And I know we kind of have weaved in and out, but you talked about this detox protocol that you do once a quarter. Is this to detox like environmental toxins, heavy metals, mold, everything? Like what is this procedure?
Yeah. So let's say once you've gone through a program, you're feeling well and you're healthy. So this is not just like if you're still sick program. I tend to tell people between biannually or quarterly, we need to go back and detox because our environment is toxic. That's just the way it is. Whether you drive a car down the highway, you're breathing in exhaust. Whether you are going to buildings that have mold in them or you're eating sushi, you potentially could be getting parasites there. I mean, shoot, put baking soda and vinegar on your fruit and see what comes out. You're going to see worms and gnats and all sorts of other junk, right? So it doesn't matter if you're vegan or if you're a carnivore. It doesn't matter what you eat. If it's all organic, we're getting toxins and organisms into our body, and that's just part of it. And our body can process a lot of this. But in today's society, we have forever chemicals, and the toxins and the pesticides and the organophosphates are getting higher and higher. So I detox every quarter. And what I end up doing is about a 10-day detox. You can do saunas, lovely addition, castor oil packs, coffee enemas. You can do any of those things. But I'm doing every quarter is something different. So 1/4 is parasite, 1/4 is bacteria, 1/4 is environmental heavy toxins, and one would be more mold toxins. And I've just built out a protocol to go through those things. So for instance, my mold protocol is an antifungal called AF&G with a binder called carboxy. And I do that with a probiotic that helps with fungus, CT biotic. I do it for 10 days. I dose it to the person's body size. And then throughout that, I'm eating clean. You can add a bunch of additions in there. You could do a water fast with it. You can do saunas with it. Anything you want to add on, depending upon the type of biohack you want to do.
So you do a fungal, a bacterial, environmental, and what else?
Parasite. Yep.
Okay. So 10 days every quarter, you're eating really clean, doing saunas, all the things.
Yeah. I mean, you got to maintenance your body, whether it's your hair and you go get it styled. You got to maintain your body to stay healthy when you go work out. We do all these things. You go to get your teeth checked twice a year. You still got to detox. We're living in the world we live in.
No, I would completely agree. Okay. So thank you, Dr. Moore, for talking to us about all of these random things, but still I think that they are very beneficial for people because, again, people have questions about toxins. And to your point, a lot of times when people are sick or they're just not feeling well and things aren't maybe adding up, right? That's what I tell people all the time, like to all the patients out there who are sick and tired of being sick and tired and who are, their body's saying something's not right, but everyone's saying your labs look normal. That's because most of the time, most providers don't know how to do the appropriate labs, right? Mm-hmm. You know your body, when you don't feel well. That being said, even though your body's transitioning to a different phase in life, your hormones are shifting, whatever. If you all of a sudden, I tell people this all the time too, you don't develop significant debilitating anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, large changes in your mental health in your 50s for the most part, right? Like very uncommon. So if you're developing symptoms like this in your 40s and 50s and doctors are saying, well, that's just a part of aging, everything's fine, here's your antidepressant, there's something wrong there, right? I tell people this all the time, anxiety and depression, there is no Prozac deficiency. There is no Xanax deficiency. There is no, that doesn't exist. There's not a clonazepam deficiency. And so it's something wrong with, you very well said it, your body just doesn't feel safe in the environment that it's in. And so you have to figure out what that is. And to your point, we do have all of these toxins and it's pretty interesting. My dad, I told you this first started, I grew up in Lebanon, Missouri, which is a smaller town in Missouri. My dad always had this amazing garden growing up. I mean, this huge garden, and he would do the weirdest things to the soil. He still does it. He grounds up Tums and he puts eggshells and he goes and gets cow poop with certain worms and depends on what he puts where, how he grows it. It's wild. But, he always had this amazing garden and he gripes that every year he's like, it's just harder and harder to grow stuff. My tomatoes won't grow right, my this, and it's all the soil. It's all, and I've kind of seen that over the last 30 years plus because he still brings me everything fresh and it's different. It tastes a little different. It's a different size. It's, and he's like, I grow it the exact same. And I know he does. He's very particular. He gets so much coffee grounds, so many egg yolks, shells, he's got this whole formula. It's wild. But the stuff has changed over the last 30 plus years. And I think it's just the soil, to your point, and this environment that we live in is just different. And so I think you said it very well when you said, you get your, women, we go get our hair colored every 90 days because you don't want people to see your roots, and you get your nails done and you go to the gym, you do all these other things to take care of yourself. So you also have to help your body detox. And with that, I would also like to say, whoever's listening to this, and you can speak on this too, but I see so many women who literally are so chronically constipated. Like, I have a bowel movement once a week and they think that is normal. That is not normal. Like, it's not for you to not have a bowel movement every day, period. End of discussion, right? Like, that's not normal.
No, I've seen a woman that went once per month, and I was like, how does that even happen? But yes, all humans should go to the bathroom with every large meal. If you eat 2 meals a day, you need to go to the bathroom twice a day. If you eat 3, you need to go to the bathroom, number 2, 3 times a day. And although that is not anymore the norm, because so many people have unhealthy digestive tracts, it is what should be happening, and it is healthy.
Yeah. So remember that too. So if that's not happening, another reason to maybe think, especially if you're having some anxiety, depression, different things, about trying to find a provider that could help you figure this out, especially if they say that your hormones are normal. So we will make sure and link Dr. Moore's stuff. He has a very active social media platform, Instagram. I'm sure you're on Facebook, TikTok, all the things, but we'll make sure that we also link his website in all the show notes, and so that you'll be able to find him if you would like. But thank you for coming on and talking to me about all this.
Thanks for having me.
I hope that you found this episode helpful. I thought it was very eye-opening, kind of alarming, but at least now we know what to do about water and air, and actually to just think about it. These are very important things. If you found any of this educational or beneficial, please, please, please share it with someone. Share it with lots of people, because education is how we make America healthier. Remember that Modern Endocrine is now available to see patients virtually in 39 states. We would love to help you in any way possible. All the information can be found on our website, what states that we see people in, and you can even book your own appointment on our website. I'm very active on social media at Modern Endocrine, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Find me, follow me, chat with me. Let me know who you want me to interview. Let me know what you want to know about. Make sure that you're following us wherever you get your podcasts, whether it be YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Follow us so you never miss an episode. We may be throwing bonus ones out there every now and then, not on Sundays. And please leave us a review. If you like what we're doing, leave us a review so that we know to keep doing it, and that we know to keep bringing you all this powerful educational information. Lastly, thank you again for joining and for taking the time to try to further your health education, and have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week on Hormones, Metabolism, and You. The information presented, including any materials discussed, referenced, or linked within this podcast, are for general educational purposes only, not the practice of medicine. No doctor-patient relationship is formed from you listening to this podcast or utilizing any of the information provided. I am a doctor, but I am not talking to you as your doctor. The information provided is not intended to diagnose or treat health problems, or take the place of the professional medical care provided by your doctor. If you are experiencing any health problems, including problems you believe have been touched upon in any respect within this podcast, you should consult your doctor about the problems without delay. You may ask your doctor whether he or she believes the information I have provided would be helpful to you, but you should still consult your doctor immediately and follow his or her medical advice as your treating physician. I'm just here to provide you basic knowledge about the issues we discuss so you are more aware of them and can better discuss them with your doctor. That's why we call it Back to the Basics. Join me on the next episode as we continue our journey.